In this problem, we want to write a method that will check the number in an array for repeating or duplicate numbers, returning true if the array contains repeating values, false if none of the values in the array repeat. So if I look at my sample data here, I would start by taking the first element, 7, comparing that to 2 to see if it's equal, then comparing it to 11 to see if it's equal. Then I would need to go back and grab this second element, 2, and compare it to the 11. I wouldn't need to go back and compare it to 7 because that's already been checked, that pair. So I would just compare it to the last one. So if I looked at the next line, right, I would compare 1 to 5, 6, 7, and 1, and within that first rotation, it would catch that there is a repeat. So if I look at my code here, let's go ahead and set up, we're going to need nested loops for this so that we can cycle through each element until we find a repeat. So for my outer loop, I'll use the loop variable I starting at 0, and we want I to be less than the length of the array. And since array length is an instance variable, I don't use parentheses as I would for a method call. So I is less than array.length, and then we'll increment the I. For the inner loop, I'll use the loop variable j. And I don't need to start at 0 because remember we'll have already checked that first pair of elements, so I don't have to go back and recheck it once I move on to the next. So I'll start with j at I instead of at 0. And then j must also be less than the array length. And then we'll increment j. Okay, so now we need a condition. So if the array element I is equal to the array element j, then that would be a repeat and we would return true. But we have to be careful that we're not checking an element against itself. So we're going to need an AND statement here that excludes when I is equal to j. Otherwise, it would always return true. So we'll return true if there are repeats, and then outside of the nested loop, we're going to return false if there are no repeats. So let's compile that and see if there's any errors, and status is correct.